Got that passion for aviation from your father?
Yeah, my dad, I flew from a young age. I didn't fly, but I was going with my dad while he was flying small planes up to grandma's house.
So you understood it. You got the feel for it a little bit.
Yeah, my dad's a pilot. His twin brother's a pilot. Their father was a pilot.
So it ran
my
in the
cousin's
blood.
a pilot. Yeah, I was having this discussion with my mom recently. It's like, okay, great, you have a pension or you have a 401k, but look at our inflation rates the last 2 to 3 years of the cost of goods. How can you really plan? Even myself, how can I plan 20 years out when I'm going to need money in retirement?
You don't know
We don't know how much it's going to cost or what you need.
Welcome to the Chris Salerno Show, your go-to for real estate, business, health, and family insight. I'm Chris Salerno, CEO of QC Capital. Each episode, we explore the latest trends and expert advice from industry leaders. Whether you're an investor, entrepreneur, or seeking balance, this show provides an inspiration you need. Join us and elevate your game on the Chris Salerno Show.
Welcome to the Chris Salerno Show. I'm your host, Chris Salerno. Very excited to have a new friend, Curt, on the show. Curt is a wealth of knowledge. He's actually a private pilot, but also does a lot of investments in the development real estate space throughout the country. He also flies some of the top billionaires in the United States that you will probably not know, and we will not name them for confidentiality purposes. But we're going to talk a little bit on those type of conversations he has on those planes with them, what they're doing, what their background is, what Curt's doing in the real estate industry. So you're definitely going to want to stay tuned for this. Curt, thanks so much for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for coming out and having me on the show.
Most definitely. A little different setup in the studio. We're in Oceanside, California. Beautiful out here. This is the first time I've ever been to Oceanside.
Yeah, it's pretty nice. Like I've been born and raised just down the street in Carlsbad.
Okay.
And
we were there yesterday. Gorgeous.
Yeah, that's right. It's hard to leave. I love traveling and seeing other places. Yeah. But even going to like Hawaii or Fiji and you come home and you go, oh, it's sunny and warm and nice.
The weather is perfect.
Yeah.
Across the board, the weather is perfect. I had coffee this morning with a couple investors into our car wash fund who live here in Oceanside and Carlsbad. And we were talking about how expensive LA is, how expensive San Diego is, and how this little pocket of Oceanside, Carlsbad, North Carlsbad is really booming because the price of real estate is lower than, LA or San Diego.
More affordable. Sure.
Yeah.
And it's even skyrocketed. I mean, I've been here for a while, but it's going way up because you're getting the Bay Area and the LA people moving down here.
I definitely see that.
Because I think there's a lot more apartments in LA and San Francisco. Yeah. So we've seen a lot of cash buyers.
We stayed in LA last night. I will not lie. If you've ever watched The Walking Dead, that's what it looked like downtown LA.
Yeah, they got a pretty big homeless problem.
Oh my God. I'm not they were crossing the streets. I'm like, we're literally in The Walking Dead right now.
Yeah, it's just a strange place.
I didn't realize it. And you know how the media like puffs everything up. I was thinking in my head, okay, they're just taking one little story and running with it because you see it all over media. But no, it's actually true. Like it's like The Walking Dead.
You see it for yourself and you go, oh, that's pretty.
Oh, I know.
Pretty weird.
I know.
But
well, it sounds like you're investing heavily in the Texas markets. Let's talk a little bit because before we were talking about your company that you did some hard money lending as well. So let's talk about who Curt is all the way back from childhood till now.
Yeah. So, I'm born and raised in San Diego. Had a great upbringing. My dad was an airline pilot. He was gone a lot.
So is that what really got you into it?
Yeah, that's what got me into flying. The funny part is, like, we didn't have a lot of money. My parents had me young at 20.
I like having, I had my son at 24. My father was 83.
Okay.
And so I prefer having my son in the 20s because I know when my son turns 18, I'll be 42.
Yeah.
So I'll still be able
to
be
my age.
I'll be able to rough and tough him.
So that was my dad at 20. So I had a young dad with tons of energy.
Yeah.
We just didn't have the money, but we lived right on the beach. We went to the beach every other day.
Surfing, you did
played
everything.
Baseball, did all the fun stuff.
Hell
it's funny because now I talk to my dad, who's really involved with my son. Now two sons.
I love
that.
But
he's 64. I will be 64 when my kid's 20, 22, so it's a big difference.
So he's young, 64.
Yeah, my dad's young.
He's probably still out there,
Oh, yeah, he surfs, and he's a black belt in jiu-jitsu.
So he has that energy level as those little ones.
More than me, you know what I mean? So he does, but it's funny because I told him, I go, it's different raising a kid in your 40s than even for you in your 20s. I go, the difference is I don't have as much energy, even though I force myself to get up off the couch.
Yeah, you have to.
Dad, come play.
Let's go.
I will get up even after a long day. But I go, I have a lot more money than I did in my 20s. So it's like we can do these vacations that I never got to do.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's just a different
You get to show
life.
them a different lifestyle that you never, was
Yeah.
able to see as a child.
Totally.
And that's why we work hard.
Yeah, and it's a fine line. Like, okay, I don't want to spoil him because
Yeah.
I don't want to be a little spoiled
Correct.
brat. You got to do this and that. So,
It is a very fine line.
Yeah.
I agree with that. So talk to us. So you got that passion for aviation from your father?
Yeah. My dad, I flew from a young age. I didn't fly, but I was going with my dad while he was flying small
Oh, yeah.
planes up to grandma's house and whatnot. And so
So you understood it. You got the feel for it a little bit.
yeah, my dad's a pilot. His twin brother's a pilot. Their father was a pilot.
So it ran
My
in the
cousin's
blood.
a pilot. So anyways, I just couldn't, I couldn't really afford it. Right in my
Pilot school's
early,
expensive. My
Yeah.
sister is actually looking to get her pilot's license, and when she was telling me 150,000,
Yeah.
I was like, "Holy
That's
cow!"
exactly
now,
the number.
You do get paid very well because
Yeah.
if you look at the statistics, and you can correct me because you have a lot more knowledge than I do, but from what I've looked at, a lot of your pilots are getting older.
Yep.
FAA is the 65 limit cutoff, and so they are a huge need for pilots because the majority of them are older and they need to fill spots.
Yeah, and it's correct, and because training is so expensive, you're right on the money. It's $100,000 to $150,000.
Yeah, you got simulators, you got all that.
and it takes year and a half if you're full time not having a job,
Not doing
That's what it
anything,
takes.
yeah.
And so number one, I didn't have that money. I couldn't get approved for a loan back then, so I did it the hard way. Took me 2.5 years. I worked three jobs.
Oh my goodness.
And I worked high paying jobs. My friends used to laugh at me like, "Why do you have 3 jobs?" I'm like, "Well, because I'm making a high dollar per hour
Which is
doing
important.
surf lessons, valet parking, getting the tips." And
Oh, heck yeah.
So instead of working an office job from 8 to 5 for back in the day, $12-14 an hour, I was like, no, I'm making $50 an hour because the flying lessons were like $130 per hour.
Oh, I love that.
So yeah, it took me a while. So basically, I couldn't afford the flying, so I'm real good at numbers and math. So I started in accounting. I became a controller of a company. So I had a really big economics and finance background in college and everything. Yeah. And then one day, I just kind of said, I became a financial advisor after that.
Nice.
And even though they told you, hey, you work for yourself, it's a pushy sales job.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
a financial
It is.
advisor is a sales job.
Oh, yeah.
And I just, I had one good month, and then the next month you'd make zero money. Then the next month you'd do pretty well, and then the next month zero. So I just looked at it and said, you know what? This isn't what I want to do my whole life. I want to help people, have a financial plan and be financially free or whatnot, but this isn't the way I want to do it.
Yeah.
Not for sales. So I ended up leaving that job, 2 weeks notice, and I left and went to flight school.
Wow.
And I worked myself through flight school. Glad I did it. Best thing I ever did.
Most definitely.
But it's funny because after reading Rich Dad Poor Dad in 2004, that kind of got me going with the real estate stuff, right? I already had a finance background.
Got your mind working.
But I said, well, okay, so first things first, let's go make $200,000 or $300,000 a year and then invest all that money into real estate.
Mm-hmm.
And that's literally what I'm doing now. So I'm doing exactly what I plan to do.
And pilots need more friends like you who are other pilots to
Yeah.
help educate them. We've talked to a lot of pilots. We have a phenomenal group of pilots that have invested with us. And you guys are so busy. I mean, you are very,
Yeah.
very busy. You're up there flying the planes. Yes, you have some time up there when you're coasting and you hit that autopilot button to, read a book or to educate yourself. But you really don't know where to start to at the end of the day when it comes to these pilots.
Yeah, and you're right. And we have a lot of time up in the cockpits, and pilots. A lot of us are just talking to each other, right? So it's like, hey, what do you do on your days off? And a lot of pilots like spending their money, have boats, and do family stuff because when you're gone, you're gone. We miss the time at home.
You're
with
sleeping
kids
in
and-
hotels.
Yeah, so it's a great job, but I tell everybody, hey, the biggest con to the job is you're away from your family. You're not making all your kids' baseball games.
Yeah.
So the biggest thing for me is like, how can I still have that job and have free travel or vacation destinations, things like that, and have someone else pay for them? But what if I don't want to work? Like, I don't want to fly until I'm 65,
Yeah.
or at least want the option not to.
Yeah,
right?
no, I don't.
So
I don't
maybe-
blame you. I think all pilots should have the option not to.
Yeah.
all doctors. Doctors are very high stressful jobs as
Yeah.
well, and everyone should have that option. But at the end of the day, you have to take action and be willing to, like you did.
Yeah, and it's taking risks, right? So it's finding whether the person's comfortable. A lot of pilots have a 401k and they invest in the stock market, wherever their financial
Correct.
advisor tells them, and that financial advisor takes makes their 2 to 3% every year on their balance, and then
it's because the market in society has told you to do that.
Yes.
I mean, throughout college, or throughout high school, I remember. I think I was like in middle school and high school. I would never forget. My teacher said, "If you don't go to college, Chris, you're gonna flip burgers at McDonald's."
Yeah.
And she said, "Do you want to do that?" And I should have said, "Well, I'd rather own the McDonald's."
Yeah.
I should have said that because those are cash
It's
cows.
true.
But they prep you for that. Then when
Yeah.
you're in college, you're like, look, you have to go get a high paying job or a 9-to-5 job, and then you put your money in your 401k, and then you retire. That's the best thing, retirement. But I was reading articles even within the week with this crazy election that's going on, and a lot of people are going to have to work a lot longer, a lot older, and a lot of people are scarce of their 401k and even Social Security on if it could even, if they could even outlive it.
Yeah.
I think they're going to not be able to outlive their own Social Security, and you're going to see the population actually work at a later age.
Yeah, I was having this discussion with my mom recently. It's like, okay, great, you have a pension or you have a 401k, but look at our inflation rates the last 2 to 3 years of the cost of goods. How can you really plan? Even myself, how can I plan 20 years out when I'm going to need money in retirement?
You don't know what
we don't know how much it's going to cost or what you need. Like, I had a number for me, like, hey, if I got to this number, I could probably quit work and invest it in the ways that I invest it, making 10 to 20% a year.
Yeah.
Some safe investments, some risky ones, like analyze that or average it out at 15%. I'm like, oh, I'll do well. Now the numbers change. It's like, wait, am I going to stay in my current house for the rest of my life? Okay, that's one way to save some costs. But then you got to buy a new car every 10 to 20 years.
I mean, let's look at just the past 4 years, right after COVID, cap rate compression with real estate assets.
Yeah.
The resale of cars skyrocketed out the roof. And then now look, you got groceries, you got gasoline, you got everything else that has skyrocketed just in the past 4 years.
Yeah.
No one could have planned for that.
No, I believe it's funny. My girlfriend does a lot of the shopping for the family at home because I'm gone a lot. And I went and did it the other day.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait, a gallon of milk is $8? Like, we buy the organic, to give our kids the best stuff. But it used to be $4. So you're double the price of milk. Is that going to be $16 in 10 years?
I think it will. I think that we are so accustomed to, you can't go back to the milk company and say, hey, drop your prices back to $4. They're going to say, why?
Yeah.
People are still needing it. People are still going to want it. Why are we going to drop our price? It's
supply and demand.
It's the new norm.
Yeah. I think you're right.
It's the new norm. The new norm is the price is going to be here. So what do we have to do? We got to work our ass off.
Yeah.
We got to be more strategic with our investments. We have to be smarter with them in a timely manner, because I think either administration, you're not going to go in and say, hey, we're going to write a policy about price gouging. Well, because you don't know the gouge of the price.
Yeah.
You can't go and say, okay, well, companies, you can only make 20% profit now based off of your wholesale price. You're not going to be able to do that as an administration, because you don't know where that ends or how large it is. And you don't know where it's coming from the manufacturer. But I think the industry, I think it's in the new norm where, a gallon of milk is $7 now, and a thing of eggs is $7-8, and that's unfortunately the new norm. So we have to live with that, because I don't see an administration coming in and saying, hey, you need to cut your prices.
Yeah, and I think it's hard because we live in the greatest country in the world. It's a free country.
Most definitely.
So there's definitely a difference of price gouging, but it's like, hey, these people work really hard to get us eggs, and they have land costs. Labor costs have gone up.
Labor costs, yeah.
And people need to make more money to be able to afford their rent or their houses.
Correct. I was never a big fan of increasing minimum wage. Me personally, because if you increase the labor, let's talk about business. You increase that payroll line item, what happens? Your profit goes down. Your expenses are a lot higher. Well, how do you also need, as a business owner, to live and feed your family. So how do you generate more profits? Well, if you can't cut your labor because you have a certain minimum wage, you now have to go to the very top of your gross, and you have to raise your prices to just come to where you were.
Especially in California.
Especially California.
I don't know what the minimum wage is now because I haven't had that job in a while.
Yeah.
But I think it might be up to $20 an hour.
I think they passed something for like fast food workers. It's like 20 or 25.
Yes. I think I saw 20. It used to be 15. I think it was over a gradual couple of years, but $20 an hour. So my first job was at McDonald's.
Yeah.
Proud to say it. I think I worked there 6 months and went, I'm going to get something better than this. But it was like me and a couple of friends worked there, and that is a minimum wage job. And you can say, oh, California, the prices, the cost of living are very high. but it's $20 an hour to work at McDonald's. So it doesn't really inspire people to go get something else.
So what's going to happen at McDonald's if it's $20 an hour? What's going to happen to your burger?
Yeah, I mean, I don't eat there anymore because I believe it's unhealthy. But the people that do, there's people that are busy or they just eat that food because they're, too busy or they're...
I will tell you, we got off the plane in LAX and I love In-N-Out Burger. Gotta stop and get an In-N-Out Burger. Great. I know it's probably not healthy, but it's a burger. And so got In-N-Out Burger and I was shocked actually how the price was cheap in my opinion.
Yeah.
It was like $5.49 for a double.
Totally agree.
I was actually shocked on how
and the quality is a lot better than most.
Oh my God,
it's fast food, but it's really the best. One of the better ones.
Most definitely. See, we have Shake Shack out there,
which I like.
Yeah, Shake Shack's coming out to the West Coast, which is nice. But yeah, I was shocked on actually how cheap it was.
Yeah, you know where I go because I travel a lot being a pilot.
Yeah,
and I try and eat healthy, and I go to Chipotle a lot. Yeah. So you can argue whether it's healthy or not, but for me, that's a better option than fast food.
Rice, chicken,
it's only
or
like
steak.
$10 for a burrito bowl. Wow. Every time I pay that bill, I think it's $12 with tax and everything. I think that's very affordable.
Oh, it's probably because the CEO cut down on all the
It's
gonna happen to Starbucks.
Did you see
now.
the Chipotle CEO?
Yeah, he's down in San Diego.
Yeah, so he just
they bought him a nice jet so he can fly up there. Would they buy him a Gulfstream? I think probably. So
I think it's a 550. They have a 650 and they now have a G700. Ooh. So Starbucks. Bezos, they just released that info. He got a 700. It's the new best Gulfstream. They're $80 million.
You and I were texting about this.
That's right.
You saw my background on my laptop.
Yeah.
Huge private aviation type of guy. Love it. I see it as a time capsule.
Yep.
I don't see it as a, hey, let's flaunt it, like Grant Cardone or some of those people. And hey, kudos to you guys. You guys got it, great. Yeah. But I see it more as a time capsule. I can get to point A to point B a lot faster and more efficiently than a commercial. What would be your best go-to jet?
So really, it really depends on your mission, right? Mm-hmm. So, because I do sell a few jets to clients that are really ready to buy, not just looking, right?
Yeah.
So if you came to me and said, "Hey, I'm ready to actually buy. We need some depreciation this year, whatnot."
You're going to ask me how many
hours, passengers,
and
what is the most routes you're going to be, and what kind of vacations is it going to be? All business or all vacation airplane? Because they're two different things. So yeah, exactly. 51% is the rule, right? That's what we're getting for. Yeah,
I'll do 55.
There you go.
That's
exactly right. But so it really depends on how many people you're going. I fly Gulfstreams. Not even the top ones, right? I have this comfortable one, right? And most of mine are 10, 15 years old.
You can find a good one for that.
I feel. So like a G5 is a great airplane.
Yeah.
Let's say you could buy a 2000, 24 years old, doesn't matter. You wouldn't tell the difference between a 2020 and a 2000. So you can pick one up for about $9 million.
That's not bad.
It'll do 13 hours without a stop.
Wow.
So you're in Charlotte, you're all over Europe, you're in the Middle East, wherever you want to go.
Because it only takes us about 7.5, 8.5, depending on where we go in Europe from Charlotte.
Yeah, so Charlotte, G5 is great airplane. Like I said, pick it up for $10 million.
See, 2000, you probably want to update the interior. Go, do a little cleaner
you could
interior.
spend.
But if you update the interior, it's just like a multifamily.
It is. And the cool thing about the interior, if the carpet's good and you don't mind the color, just do the seats.
Yeah,
it'd be like doing paint in a multifamily.
Yeah, most definitely.
So there's a lot of people that do that. Yeah. So it really depends on your mission. If you want a domestic airplane that goes coast to coast, a Phenom 300, that's kind of a new hot airplane.
Those are hot.
I sat in a Phenom 100 last week.
Okay.
My friend runs one on a charter, and I said, "Hey, I want to come over and check it out." I was thoroughly impressed.
Really?
The cool thing about the 100s and the 300, they're also single pilot airplanes.
Oh, so you only need one pilot.
So if you wanted to save on cost, or some of these Phenom 100 guys, they fly themselves. They're an owner pilot.
Oh, really?
So they don't even hire anybody, but they're single pilot. You can pick one up for a 100, which seats 5 to 6 people, has a toilet in the back, right?
Yeah.
Single pilot, you can pick one up for about $2 million.
No way, that's cheap.
I was shocked. I said, wow, actually.
What's the nautical miles on that?
That one I think will do about 1,000 miles, give or take, depending on how many people you have. 1,000 miles, though, does San Diego to Dallas, Dallas to Charlotte, right around that range.
Perfect.
So if you're saying, hey, I'm doing Charlotte, New York, Charlotte.
That's why I love Charlotte, because if you look on the map, we're in the middle of the East Coast. We can travel to New York, Miami, Chicago. We're perfectly stationed in the middle of the East Coast, so it's perfect for travel.
Yeah, you can go.
And you don't need a huge Gulfstream. Yeah. You can get a Phenom and just pop right up.
And the cool thing about that is, Gulfstream, if you have to be making more money to afford the operation.
They do. I will say also they do have a nice presence on the tarmac. I've
a lot of
seen
people
it.
that say, "Hey, I want presents."
I've looked.
You
I'm
gotta
like,
go
that's a
big.
Gulfstream. I was like, I could just tell with the wing.
Yep.
I was like, that's a Gulfstream.
Yeah, you're right. I have clients that say, "Hey, I want presents," and literally, even if they're
when that Gulfstream pulls up, you're like, oh shit.
that
Yep.
person makes money. That's
Yeah.
what because it costs. It's expensive. So Gulfstream.
What's the
here's
average cost on a Gulfstream? Annual with pilots.
Yeah,
and
I mean
all
that's hard to put a number on because the range is so
drastic.
much. But,
Really?
I mean, you could either be spending $3 million a year or $10 million a year. So it comes down to like how much you fly, right? I mean, a pilot's pretty much going to run $200,000 to $400,000 depending on the
one pilot.
One pilot, depending on what type
His
of Gulfstream it
experience.
is.
Oh,
you know,
really?
older G4, is it a newer a G650 pilots? You know, they're $400,000.
Because you're probably
going to
want to send them off to Gulfstream, do some simulator testing
every
if they're
year,
not familiar.
So every year, so here's an example. I'm going to go get a G650 type. That's what Grant Cardone has, right?
Got it.
That's
Nice.
a very nice airplane.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
I think he paid like $65 million for it.
Yeah.
Great airplane. So I'm going to go get a type rating in that. That is $70,000
just to get your
just
license
for the
basically.
type rating.
Wow.
And then every 12 months you have to go back, and it's $48,000 every year.
Bullshit.
So currently I fly G550s, G5s, G450s. It's $25,000 every 12 months for me to go back to school. And it's 6 days, so it's 2 days of
and
ground
the
school.
owner's paying that.
So I don't fly for one person.
Oh,
so I'm a
got it.
little bit of a different person because I'm a business owner.
That's right.
So you can, as a private pilot, you can fly for one owner. And you're on their schedule.
Yeah,
there's no days.
They call you up and say,
Yep.
"Hey, even in an hour. Hey,
yeah,
I need you to
so
be in an
like
hour."
if you go on vacation, it's your vacation days that you would negotiate.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't want that because I have the real estate. You know, I do more real estate than I do flying, even though I fly a lot.
Yeah.
So I'm considered what they call a contractor, just like a construction contractor, right? Work for myself, have an aviation business, and I have to network a lot. So it's not just that people call me randomly. It's you got to network with other pilots that can refer you out. I have a small circle of pilots that are all very qualified, good people.
Love that.
We don't steal each other's clients.
Yeah.
But we're like, hey, if you want to use him, I'm busy with another client. And all
I
my
saw that, yeah, because we follow each other on
Yeah.
Instagram, and I think you just recently posted something.
Yeah,
about,
I try and help other pilots. It's
I
kind
love
of a newer thing. I'm doing a lot more of the Instagram. One of my
Yeah.
friends said, hey, you got a personality. You got business.
You
He's
do.
younger. And he goes, you got personality. You're a good pilot. Like, you should share
Get
this
on
stuff.
TikTok, Instagram,
And so
and
I
people
just
love
did
to
it.
look at those Gulf streams.
Yeah,
You know,
I agree.
I love to look at those Gulf
Yeah.
streams when you post them.
And it's cool. So it's something I get to share. So I'm being a mentor to a bunch of pilots that have been DMing
Yeah.
me. So I'm starting a pilot community.
Love that.
Wasn't even my...
Attentions to do
It wasn't on my radar. But when I started getting like hundreds of DMs like a day,
Yeah.
I can't just respond. I got like so much going on. I respond to some. So I said, you know what? Why don't I start a community? Because I'm involved in real estate communities. You know, and I go to real estate conferences, how to raise money,
love
how to
that.
do, I'm in the commercial space. I
Yep.
went to a commercial warehouse, like industrial
yeah.
development space.
Let's talk about that too. So reading
Sure.
the book, Rich Dad Poor Dad, really got your mind thinking about really building wealth outside of the aviation space and really monetizing the income you're making to grow wealth, not just get rich, grow wealth. Let's talk about, what led you to the real estate industry. Did you get it started in single family, residential, multifamily? Walk us through that journey.
Yeah, I mean, reading Rich Dad Poor Dad, people can say good or bad things about it, but it's whatever you get out of it.
Correct.
Take what you get. I got out of that like, hey, don't just go work for one company for 20 or 30 years and invest in a 401k and you have a little savings and, go to college. Good luck, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's one avenue. Well, I wanted more out of life. So more out of life was, Robert talked about, hey, buy some real estate or buy businesses. So I said, I really like real estate. It's tangible. I'm not a fan of the stock market. That's my person,
Oh, yeah.
my whatever you want to call it, but I can't think of the word. But I invested in the stock market and watched it go up and down. I did some crypto. It goes up and down. It's too volatile for me.
So you are 100% right on that. And I was talking to Orrin Claff yesterday. We switched podcasts, and I told Orrin, I said, you don't make your money after a company goes IPO. And what I mean by that is, if you were an investor pre-IPO, you make your money once it goes IPO, you sell off.
Yep.
If you buy after it's hit the public market,
Yeah.
you may make some money, but historically, you do not make as much money as those pre-IPO guys.
Yeah.
It's higher risk, higher reward because they can lose everything. But you're right. Like, stock market is so volatile. You're placing your money in, and don't get me wrong, I love my boy Elon Musk, but
Yeah.
if he tweets and the shareholders of Tesla doesn't like his tweet because he has all the right in the world to tweet whatever he wants to talk about, why is the stock going to fluctuate?
Yeah.
Like, come on. You know,
I just think for me, it's my retirement money or my family's money, right?
Yeah.
And that's just too risky.
You want something more tangible where you can see it,
Yep.
feel it, know, okay, shit has to really hit the fan for this thing to go down.
Yeah.
And then even if it catches on fire, you got insurance, you know, get
Yep.
you a brand new one.
Yeah, and like we talked about earlier, these are the conversations I have with pilots.
Yeah.
A lot of them are like, hey, what are you invested in? I have zero stock.
Yeah.
Like, I don't own any of it.
Smart.
I take my 401k and I roll that into a self-directed IRA.
Yeah.
And I buy assets that way.
Love
so
that.
instead of the 6 or 7% average on the stock market that, you read about, I'm getting 12 at minimum up to 25% a year. Those are the returns that I want. I'm not wealthy yet, but I need to be, getting 25% or more per year on investments to
huge.
grow the wealth,
Yeah.
And I think real estate's tangible.
Yeah.
So it's always an asset, whether the value goes up or down. So I got started as a pilot. I started making enough money and I said, hey, I did a lot of research, but I went and bought a duplex. So it basically was a 3-bedroom, 2-bath with a guest house on the other side of the garage.
Love that.
Right? And I said, okay, so I took my appraiser friend. It's a local house here in San Diego. I took an appraiser friend. Hey, can I buy you dinner? This is what I'm thinking. If I buy this house and I throw like 30, 40 grand and do paint, do this, do windows, do the bathrooms, do the kitchen, I think this value. And he goes, oh yeah, if you can get that, you'll make a bunch of money. And he was right. So when I closed on the house, I go, I got it 40 grand cheaper
Than what I said.
than what I was thinking. Right.
Oh, I
and he
love
goes,
that.
oh, you totally scored. And then so it was my first house. It didn't have much money.
Yeah.
I actually sold my car for cash to pay for my down
Bullshit.
payment.
I love that.
And then as soon as I closed on the house, I went to the dealer. I'd never had a new car. I bought just a cheap $23,000 Subaru, but I financed it. So I had all the cash for my car. I put the $17,000 down, and then I actually borrowed money from, at the time I was married. So I borrowed $20,000 from my in-laws.
Wow.
And I did 2 bathrooms, like fans, paint, baseboard, real basic stuff.
Yeah.
And I raised the value of that house $120,000 in 6 months.
Unbelievable.
So I refinanced, and then that was okay. It was my first deal, but I'm like, well, I did it right.
Yeah.
And I proved the confidence.
Most definitely.
So after that, I went through a divorce. So it kind of went back a couple years, and like,
a couple's good.
Yeah. So I had to rebuy the house.
Normally,
Yeah.
people who I talk to, they go back a decade or
Yeah,
more.
it's true. So it's kind of, like getting back to normal life
Yeah.
and everything. But that house was the best thing I'd ever owned. So that's the one thing I kept in the divorce, pretty much.
Yeah.
My dad was like, pick something, but don't let her
Don't
know
pick
what
her.
you want. Yeah.
Keep the house.
So I said, okay, I want the house. So I bought
Smart.
her out and had to pay her out over 2 years and this and that. But
Yeah.
best
That's the
investment
best thing
I ever got.
Yeah. Take
So-
everything else, give me the real estate.
So a couple years later, STRs were coming up hot in 2019.
Oh my God,
so before
yeah.
COVID, I'd finally bought a house in Lake Havasu where I like to go to the lake.
Nice.
And I'm like, it's perfect STR. And then COVID hit, so I remodeled it while nobody knew what was going on.
Oh, perfect.
Everybody was like not traveling.
Yeah.
I remodeled it and did the same thing. I did another appraisal,
Love
I refied,
that.
and gained,
And that's
200
perfect right after COVID. Interest
and,
rates
yeah.
were dirt
and
cheap.
I'll tell you what, that house was booked 30 days a month.
Is that mainly Airbnb or VRBO?
Yeah, most of that was Airbnb. I did a little bit of VRBO, but my Airbnb was just on fire.
How many
so.
Airbnbs do you have?
So that's the only one because I sold a couple of the others because I wanted scalability.
Yeah.
So I think if you're
It's really hard to scale.
unless it's all you do.
Correct.
I hope you're enjoying today's episode. Just a quick reminder to make sure you never miss an episode. Stay connected with us by following us on social media platforms, Instagram, Twitter, Threads, TikTok at Chris_Salerno_. And don't forget to subscribe to YouTube to catch the video versions of our episode. You'll get exclusive content, behind the scenes footage, and much more. Head over to YouTube, Chris_Salerno now, and hit the subscribe button. Stay tuned because we've got more great content coming right after this.
Unless it's all you do. And then what I found too is like, I don't get me wrong, I love my Airbnb guys out there, and I know some of them, some of the big players in the Airbnbs, we both know.
They crush.
They're crushing it with revenue. I've analyzed them, and really based off of what they have, they really can't sell. Like you're not going to go buy one of those type of Airbnbs because they have a pickleball court. Like they have all the 9 yards amenities, and you can't really make that a house. Like you're going to have to go in and gut it, change it all. So it's really unique to that type of Airbnb, I feel, and it's banking on that industry. I've noticed that with some of the big Airbnb players.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, if you have a luxury Airbnb like that with all the amenities, you're really only going to sell to somebody else.
To an investor.
To an investor that's going to do the same thing.
Correct.
And, personally, I think the STR market has dropped down. Maybe not in certain areas, but
I see more and more, the car wash sector, you're seeing a lot of municipalities ban car washes. We're buying a car wash in Cape Coral, Florida.
Okay.
And we talked to the city a couple weeks ago. They are not allowing any new car washes coming on in the market. Well, thank God we're in.
Good for you guys.
I know, right? And I've seen that with the Airbnbs. I mean, look at the regulations New York has. Look at a lot of these cities regulating. Asheville, North Carolina.
San Diego just did it.
San Diego did,
So what they did was they limited permits. Palm Springs, just because it's local. But San Diego is a big one.
Really?
It's a big market for it. So they put out, the interesting thing was, they put a limit on permits in the city of San Diego for Airbnbs.
Oh.
There's still a few left, which was surprising.
Right.
But basically, that's a big thing. So I will not buy any more STRs.
Yeah. You got to be careful with that. Like Asheville, you can only have in Asheville city limits. If you are Airbnb-ing, it has to be part of your primary residence. So like I know a guy, he's built a house, but he also has a guest house. He can Airbnb that out because his
he can
land.
Stay in the guest house.
Well, he's staying in his primary house, but he can Airbnb the guest house out because it's all one private parcel. So you can't have just a vacant house in Airbnb.
Yeah.
It has to be your permanent residence.
Yeah, so I only have the one, and mainly because it's like it doubles as a lake house for me. Me and the family go. It's a 5-hour drive, and now we have an airplane, a small airplane, so it's an hour flight.
It's perfect.
So I'm not a short-term rental fan. It worked for me. I made a bunch of money on it.
Kudos.
And as a investor, we're always watching the market, what's going on. So I actually transitioned into boutique hotels.
Love that.
I have a couple friends doing it. And we bought one in December because the regulation, it's a commercial building. It's a hotel.
Yeah.
We are not afraid of the city or state regulations.
Yeah.
They're not going to crack down on
Talk to us about
hotels.
those boutique hotels. How are you guys operating them?
So, they're, depending on how many rooms you have, a buddy of mine, Rich Summers in San Diego.
Love Rich. I know him.
Great guy. I've known him a while. He really likes the smaller boutique hotels. I think like he has one that's 10 and one that's 40 rooms.
Yeah.
They don't have a ton of on-site staff. They can run it remote from his office in San Diego with just some cleaners and a repairman. So that's So you can take his first hotel. They removed the manager on site that was actually living in one of the units, and they turned it around for like, if you let go of the manager, didn't need one, and you return that one unit, it was like $200,000 in NOI for the 1 year. So good for him.
So it's like mobile check-in.
Mobile check-in. So we ended up buying, I bought with Blake Daly as my operator. I partnered with him. I raised some capital from family and friends.
Love that.
The deal is really, really good. I put a lot of my own money into the deal. It's 130 units, 130 rooms in the Smoky Mountains of Tennessee.
Ooh,
I love Tennessee.
I'm going to bring my son.
Yeah, I'm going in a couple weeks.
Let me know.
It is a awesome area. So I
Really?
went in January. It was cold, but
Yeah.
I wanted to see the hotel we bought.
Yeah.
We closed like December 15th.
Oh, and it's perfect timing that you're going in that September, October. Leaves are changing. It's cool weather.
And what's cool is right now we're doing a $3 million renovation. So we bought it from a family.
Mom and pop. Yeah.
Mom and pop.
Probably lived in Tennessee.
They had never heard of putting it on Airbnb or hotels.com. They just didn't do any marketing. So that's what we're looking for.
Wow.
So we paid $7 million for it. We're doing a $3 million renovation. When we're done, it'll probably be worth about 17 is what our underwriting shows. And so far, everything is on point for that.
We're doing the same thing, but in the car wash sector. These
Yeah.
mom and pops don't realize the ability to market, the ability to get on social media and really boost, just like what you have, your community and your following that you have on social media is so substantial. People don't realize that when you're operating these businesses. And I think that's what a big turning point with COVID is that you can either, restaurants, for example, either get on DoorDash, get on Uber Eats and, start delivering or create your own delivery service, or you're going out of business.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think COVID put a lot of restaurants out of business.
Oh my God, yeah.
But the people that adapted.
Correct.
And
They
did
stayed
delivery
alive.
and they figured it
Yeah,
out.
and they made money and they powered through it.
Yeah. And so I love the boutique hotel space. And
Love that.
one reason a couple reasons I said, before, the regulations aren't going to change.
Yeah.
We're not worried about that.
Yeah, you can't.
The other thing I like as a boutique hotel, over multifamily is that we can change our rates every single night.
Yeah, you can.
So average daily rate is how you analyze or
and you guys
underwrite
have
a hotel.
you have software.
Yep.
I know multifamily, we have software too for daily, but it's not substantial like a hospitality.
And I mean, in multifamily, you know, typically you're raising rent every 12 months. That's
Correct.
kind of your, you know,
That's
if you're
the
able
mantra.
to, that's where you're at. We're every night based
Yeah.
on the season, based on supply and demand.
Oh my God, yeah.
And we have automated software. So if our hotel gets booked up within like 70%, then the room rates are going to go up.
Yeah,
You know,
might
so
as well. If it hits a lower threshold, you may drop it. You know,
yeah,
to
the
get
one
them
thing
filled.
is like, you know, our hotel, it's 130 units. We've gone through some staff. You do have to have a lot of
Oh,
cleaners.
you have to. I think you have to have staff on that
so
size.
operating expenses are right around the 50% mark. So which
Got
is
it.
kind of high compared to commercial or, I mean, what's multifamily, 35?
Yeah, 35, 40.
So it's just a little bit more, but I like the control factor.
Yeah.
So if it gets slow, it gets slow. But if it gets busy and you know how to operate,
Correct.
You know, if it gets slow, we just drop our prices a little
Most
bit
definitely.
and get the rooms booked.
Yeah.
But so far, I love this space.
Love that.
I love that I've got, you know, my dad and some other friends involved, and
Love
they
that.
don't invest a ton, but they're excited about it.
Oh, heck yeah.
And they get all the monthly investor email updates, and they're all good. And we also put in there the bad stuff.
Yeah.
Like, hey, we did
You
a
have to.
refinance, and it took 3 months longer because it was a USDA agriculture loan. I've
Yep.
never done one. It took forever.
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
So it costs us money.
That's how it is. Yeah.
And so as an operator, it's like, hey, we're going to make this up because
Yeah.
so far our average daily rate is higher than what we planned. We're doing really well.
Love that. And that's a big thing I noticed too. Right after, or I would say 2020, end of 2022, beginning of 2023, with this interest rate hike coming, one thing I heard from our investors is, oh, I'm in so-and-so's deal and they went ghost. And so I went back to
Yeah.
our team and I said, look, Sarah, our asset manager, I said, you're going to hate me, but instead of our PPM that says once a month updates, we're doing bi-weekly. So
Yeah.
they're going to get every other week, they're going to get an email on how the property's doing. And
Yeah.
we've been doing that for the past 2 years.
It's genius.
And have not changed that. It's a lot more work on our end.
Yeah.
But even though some of the stuff may be repetitive and in these emails, they enjoy that they're getting it and being transparent. And I love that's what you guys do.
Yeah, it's funny that you speak on that because I like doing a lot of the investor relations.
Yeah.
I'm learning, even though I'm a good operator, I know marketing really well.
Most definitely.
It's not my favorite part. My favorite part is talking to guys like you, doing similar business, working with investors, and I like educating people. Hey, put your money to work for you. Here's why, but based on even the tax advantages and everything that real estate. So at least me and Captain Capital is my business. You know, we have a couple different employees, but I love the investor relations. I'm in charge of it.
I
won't hand that off because these are my people that I'm raising money from.
It's so hard to hand off too. I mean, I've gone through 2 investor relations associates, and I will say they were not athletes, so I've learned my lesson. Learned my lesson there. But I handle all investor relations now.
Yeah.
I enjoy it. I can close. I can get it done quicker.
Yep.
And I will eventually bring in that individual, but it's going to be hand selected.
Yep.
I'm taking my time. It's going to be hand selected. They have to have a athletic background because it is very tricky in some circumstances raising capital, but you have to enjoy it. You have to be comfortable hearing no, you know, all the time.
Yeah, and even though it's like a sales job, I don't think of it as that. I'm an educator trying to help people. If I don't raise from certain people, it's like, hey, this is a long-term relationship. So I get a lot of friends that want to invest, and they may say yes, and they're like, hey, something came up, I can't. No problem. I got another deal in 3 to 6 months. Don't worry about it.
I'll
Get
keep you
the
on
next
our
one.
email list. Most definitely.
And to touch on your investor relations emails, that's good. I told one of my partners, like, no, let's just do quarterly updates. I go, no. I'm doing monthly.
Yep.
I'm doing them. And our lawyer goes, actually, Curtis is right on that. That's a genius idea because, number one, it's marketing.
Correct.
Every email that you put out is marketing. So whether they're bad or good, you know, you just include all the details. You're building a relationship.
Oh my God, yeah. Yep, and we're doing it every 2 weeks now, given
Which
the
is
current
just-
market environment. You
Yeah.
know, the more touches, the better.
100%.
More touches, the better. Let's talk on some industrial that you're doing.
Yeah,
we
so-
chatted on it before this.
Yeah, so I've just transitioned from like I owned a bunch of single family, owned duplexes, fourplexes. They're all great to start, but to really scale, it's better to get a team and own 10 or 20% of a large asset.
Most definitely.
I get 0 phone calls on my hotel. That's not my job in the hotel, right?
yeah.
So my partner operates. He updates us. I have questions. I ask. I don't want the phone calls every day, all day from a hotel.
You're going to have a lot with those too.
Yeah, and so we've been researching the commercial industrial warehouse space,
which is booming. Data centers.
Yep.
I will tell you, data centers, I'm hearing out the
It's
wazoo.
funny, I haven't heard that, but that's a good one.
Look at data centers. So we have a client who is very large in the energy sector.
Okay.
Won't name his name or the company, but he's a CEO of a very, very large company. Duke Energy, all these large players, CEOs sit on his board, like very large. And I had dinner with him about 2 months ago, and he said, because obviously they consult all these large conglomerates, he said, look into data centers because data centers are booming right now.
I mean, I like the insight.
People
there.
need to store them.
And that's what's cool about even a data center is in commercial buildings.
Yeah.
Right. We're talking warehouse, right?
Yep.
So they're really flexible on how you design them.
It's basically
and
steel exterior, foundation, steel overhead, and steel beams inside.
Yeah, and they're super simple. So we're building several of them. We're closing one today. Actually, got to sign after this. And we're doing development, but we're also going to buy pre-existing assets and then just increase the value. So I like the development play in growth markets.
Love that.
The one we're closing today is in the Woodlands, which is North Houston.
Yeah,
it's a growing
booming.
market.
Oh,
It's a really not high net worth, but higher salaries. But the biggest thing is, so we're building warehouses that businesses will lease from us, right? So if you have a triple net lease, it's literally 90% less work than self-storage or multifamily.
For those who don't know triple net leases, it is the landlord basically is all hands off. The tenant who is in there leasing from you takes care of everything.
Including property taxes,
everything.
Every insurance and everything. So the only thing that the
you
landlord
have to do is pay the mortgage.
We pay the mortgage and then anything outside on the building. So the tenant is responsible.
So you'll
inside.
have insurance too on the outside.
Yeah. So HVAC, like air conditioning. Let's say like a glass window.
You guys don't include that?
So it depends.
Charlotte? You gotta pay for
so
everything.
Houston, we will have AC, but we'll be responsible if it breaks.
Oh, really? Charlotte, they make you pay for it.
That's interesting.
Come to Charlotte.
I'll tell you what,
they make you take care of all of it.
One cool thing about commercial is it's whatever you want to negotiate.
Correct. That's the great part because you can say, look, okay, you as a landlord, I want you to cover XYZ, and we're going to cover XYZ, and you got to be very careful. Charlotte, we're looking for a new office space with studio. I've been on a hunt for the past year and a half to try to find this space.
Find the right one.
It is so hard. Once you find it, you then go into negotiation. The seller just wants crazy, unrealistic, but that's the lovely part is you can negotiate.
Yeah. And I like it because I want to be more hands off, right? And I want more time.
And it's also a great retirement vehicle too.
Yeah, agreed.
Because you know what you're going to get. If you get a very large individual leasing your space, or a corporation leasing your space, they have, corporate guarantees normally. Hopefully it's not a WeWork and go under. But very large corporate guarantees. So once you sign that lease, you're going to get $100,000 a year or $200,000 a year, whatever that number is. You're going to get that a year, and that's steady too.
Yeah, and you don't have as much turnover, like you said. So you're signing 3 to 10 year leases, depending.
And you get 3 to 5 if you're lucky, but normally around 3% increases
every
year.
year. Yeah, and they're built into the lease. So I like it because it's an asset class that I think is booming. I think we're a little bit ahead of the curve as far as what's been going on in the last couple of years is multifamily, the cap rate's compressed. A lot of people went to self-storage or mobile home parks.
Self-storage is oversaturated.
Now it's oversaturated.
Yeah.
So,
mobile home parks, I can't get myself into that space.
So I have a couple.
I love those guys. They are cash cows, but I just can't get myself
They're
into
pretty
those
much
space.
heavy touch, unless you're buying 100 units or up. And the problem is if you're buying 100 units up, you're competing with guys like Brandon Turner.
Oh, yeah.
And
phenomenal guy, does great things. I think a better life he has, that community.
Yeah, I think
he's doing great things.
Open Door Capital, they have so many thousands of
I just
lots.
had a client sell in New Mexico, $9 million as a mobile home park. He's 1031ing into our car washes with us. But I told him, I said, and he's like, I'm out.
Yeah.
So,
it's like, I'll make some money on it, but man, it's just so high touch.
It is.
You're dealing for the most part with people that make a little bit less money. Like we're dealing with people that are struggling to pay rent. So you got to have some compassion,
Most definitely.
and I'm not evicting people, but it just gets old. Every other day it's a sewer leak. There's just so many issues with it. So it's just not for me, right?
Yeah.
So I want free time with my family. I don't even want to fly as much, but I want the real estate assets to continue to grow well. So we're building commercial assets from ground up development, which is fun to me. It's a little higher risk, but we have a team, and we have partnered with a builder that's built 400 million in Houston alone.
So you're de-risking it by that.
Because we have the broker who's the builder.
Oh, yeah.
And they know the area.
Yeah.
So the underwriting, we underwrite conservatively, but these deals are looking very,
and literally,
very good.
it's concrete slabs, steel beams, metal exterior.
So 8 months from tractor start to finished product. 8 months. What's multifamily? 2-3 years?
Yeah, that's
you know what I
what
mean?
it is.
Because there's not much to them. It's concrete. You throw up. We're doing a little bit more luxury industrial.
Got it.
It's just 9x9 glass door front, so you get nicer tenants that want to rent.
You guys, I know you guys want the triple net. You guys should look into those car condos.
I have been looking into them. They're good
everywhere. My business partner just told me that he's looking to do them, I think in Houston or Austin.
Yep.
I'll get you in connection with him, but yeah.
So they go up the same way. And I mean, it's the same building.
Yeah,
right?
It's essentially the same.
Yep.
The only difference is you have a little loft.
Yep.
It's a man cave.
So we're looking into it. I have a couple friends building them in Lake Havasu right now. There's a guy I want to connect that's building them in North and South Dakota.
I love that.
Mark Kuhn, I believe is his name. So I want to connect with him a little bit. But it's cool because it's literally almost the same asset.
Yeah, it is.
So but the one thing with the car stuff, you can also sell those condos and make really good money as a developer. They go to high net worth people.
Correct.
Just hire,
100%.
People making $1 million or more with a couple toys.
And they sell for 100, 200,000 depending on location, things like that.
So I think it'd be really good, and that's kind of been my plan. I just haven't announced it or looked hard because we're finding really good deals in the commercial space. And the cool thing is our buildings that we're building, you can divide them up.
Yeah.
So we're building right now with this current project, 30,000 square feet. It's 3 10,000 square foot buildings.
Oh, that's perfect.
Super simple.
Boom.
They're set up every 2,000 feet. We can put up a partition
divider.
wall.
Yeah,
So if somebody comes and goes, hey, I want
need a little
6,000 square feet.
Yeah.
Or, hey, I want 2,000. And then the next door neighbor moves out in a couple years. He goes, hey, can I take that one over? My business is growing.
Sure. Boom.
And why I like flex.
It's just like a big conference room.
Exactly.
Yep.
And why I like flex space is, okay, during a downturn, right? Let's say if we are going into a recession, there's businesses out there that have 10,000 square foot warehouse. Maybe now they want
They're
4.
Downsizing.
And guess what? So the downsize. Now you also have a lot of e-commerce and things going from people working from home, and they're like, ooh, now the city says I need a studio or I need a podcast studio. 2,000 square foot warehouse studio.
I will
awesome.
tell you, we've talked about it, and I'm going to have more talks with Stephanie, our CMO, about actually getting a flex space.
Yeah.
Because Oren has a flex space
Does
where
he?
where you have offices up front, and then you have a huge warehouse. He has his Lamborghinis and his Ducatis, which is beautiful to watch. But I think that's great is a flex space like that. One, it's in Charlotte, it's cheaper price per square foot too than office, but you also have that freedom. You can expand,
and you got the flexibility.
Like yeah, I do like that. I definitely do like that. I want to dive into 2 more things.
Sure.
I know we're coming up on time. Your time's very valuable, my friend. Let's talk about family. You have 2 beautiful boys. Just had one a month ago. Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks so much.
You're traveling all the time. How do you stay present? How do you stay, with them and be the superstar dad you are?
It's hard. I think we talked before the podcast, like having kids changes your life. A lot of my friends told me it would, but you don't know until you actually have
Time
it.
flies a lot faster. Once you have
and I'm one of those dads that I love being a dad. I've always wanted to be one. It took me a while to become one.
You can't explain the word love unless you have the child.
It's
there's
different.
no word of that type of feeling. And I always say there's a very large chance if you're going to have your first child, do not be surprised that you actually love your child more than your significant other.
I would say it's the case.
Yeah, because that's a part of you.
Yeah,
that's part of your
is.
flesh, your blood. And I think a lot of people don't realize that. But we say love, but it's just there's no word to describe it unless you have a child.
Totally agree. And I think you hit it on the head. I think your kids, it sounds funny, but they're kind of more important than your significant other. Yeah. And I think it's because, at least for my relationship, I think it's because my girlfriend, my significant other, can take care of herself. Yeah. She's smart. She works.
Oh, yeah.
All these. So if something happened to me, it's like they're in good hands. But I mean, it's like those kids are like my blood.
Correct.
Even though. So I think that it's something different and weird. It's hard
to
explain.
And they look at you as the tribal leader.
Yeah. So it's good to I love being a dad. The traveling stuff is hard.
Oh, I'm sure.
Even next month, I'm going on doing a couple speeches and some podcasts. Yeah. And it'll be good. It's good for business. I'll enjoy it. I'll be ready to go home every day.
bet.
But I FaceTime almost every day.
Love
so even
that.
with my 3.5-year-old, it's FaceTime. How's school?
I do that. That's one wonderful thing. I'm glad our arrangement is that with my son, when I don't have him, FaceTime every night.
Which
And
is
I
super cool.
I look forward to that every single day.
And it's good for everybody. It's good for the
100%.
family, no matter whether you're together or not. And I know for me, working hard and kind of changing asset classes that we touched on before. So I want to develop real estate and have a lot of wealth, but I also don't need that huge, crazy number. I don't need the Ferraris and Lamborghinis. I don't need any of that.
My mind's changed on net worth.
Yes.
And it really changed in 2023.
Okay.
And where I'm going at with this is that your net worth is irrelevant.
True.
It's about your cash flow.
Yep.
I know people right now that their net worth is half a billion.
Okay.
But they have zero cash flow because it's all tied up in real estate.
Yeah.
And the real estate's not producing cash flow.
Yep.
But on paper, their net worth is a lot.
Yeah.
Because of all their real estate they own, but the cash flow is very little. So it's definitely changed my perspective 2023 where, I net worth to me is irrelevant, especially real estate. You can juice it up.
Yeah.
It's all about cash flow.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think it's finding that number.
Correct.
That works that's what I'm chasing, right?
Yeah,
I'm chasing a number so that, and I'll tell you this, I'm reading a book right now, The Psychology of Money. Have you read it?
I've read it. I love it.
Phenomenal book. My
I
CFO
love
said
it.
you should read this.
I love it.
And I enjoy reading books. It's actually changed my mindset in the last 3 weeks.
Yeah. It's a phenomenal book.
And the way it
Phenomenal book.
changed my mindset is even though I'm frugal and I don't overspend, I actually want to pay down my mortgage on a couple of my properties. And it was never my case because it's always like, oh no, the mortgage rate's at 3 or 4%. But I can go make 15 or 20% of my money. But at that, I mean, what if cancer is going around, people, what happens if I get sick and I leave my family with debt, right? It's like, or if I didn't have those mortgages, I wouldn't need as much cash flow to come in. So it's kind of like this, I'm trying to put a new financial plan together to be more present with my kids and not always chasing to grow the cash flow. Yes, that's a goal. But if I didn't have to chase the cash flow as hard and had no debt at all, I mean, that's something that also buys freedom. It's kind of a new thing for me.
Yeah,
you know,
that's interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting outlook. I love that. Let's dive into it. Last question, because I know you're super busy and we got to get you to close that deal. We know how lenders are when signing documents. Is the billionaires you fly around? Talk to us. What? We're not naming names or anything like that, but what is maybe their average type of industry that they're in? How do they think? Because you're in a plane sometimes 4 or 5, maybe even longer hours with them. I'm sure they may come up and chat with you a little bit. The door's open, you guys can talk. Talk to us about those conversations, and then what type of industry are they in?
Yeah, I mean, it's great. So I've flown several different billionaires. I have multiple clients. A lot of them, I'd say 75% of my clients are literally tech investors. Really? So private equity, they get into companies very early, pre-IPO, like you said. And
Series
we're talking
A,
even
Series
before
B.
that. It's
even before Series A.
Yeah,
probably.
I mean, Airbnb, I fly for one guy that was into Airbnb like first.
Wow.
He's not the CEO. He flew around. The CEO flew around on his jet. Like that's how early he was in.
That's huge.
But yeah, they're very smart people. They know who to hire. That's the biggest thing. I asked this
and
one
that's
guy.
one thing we talked about too, is like we only hire athletes. Talk to us about like that common trait.
Yeah, and I asked a billionaire, multi-billionaire, right? I said, what is your biggest, or what is the biggest thing you can tell me on how you've been successful? What's the biggest decision?
What leads back to the success?
Yeah.
Like what big decision you've made in your whole career that leads back to that
and
true
he
success
said
of a
it's who
billionaire?
you hire. I think he had said he had hired 300 people over time.
Wow.
And he said, I hired each and every one of them.
Unbelievable.
He may not have recruited and this and that, but he only hired college athletes, and then he would put them in brackets of why people are motivated. So college athletes are competitive. I was a college athlete. I'm still competitive now.
I was a D1 track runner.
Oh, there you go. I played water polo and
there you
swimming.
go. I
and
give you that. I'll sink to the
fun
ground.
stuff. Yeah. But as an athlete, you want to win.
Correct.
And I still want to win.
You have that drive, that motivation, that determination. And it's look, I love everybody, but it's built internal.
Yeah.
And you really can't teach that. And when you see a football player or something like that and you're like, yeah, he's not truly into it.
Yeah.
You just can't teach that drive and motivation.
And I think even with the drive, I feel like, at least for me, it's pride.
Oh.
So like whether it's work flying a jet, like I am a top level pilot.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's a customer service job. I'm dealing with billionaires. I'm not just a pilot.
Correct.
I have a lot of customer service.
You have to.
And you're providing
That's
an
what's going to
experience.
separate you from the other pilots,
You're
at your
exactly
level
right.
too.
So it's funny. I have one billionaire that I fly for part-time. He does a lot of different things. He does multifamily development. They work with like states on grants and stuff, building large stuff.
Yeah.
He's also building car washes.
Oh,
and
is he?
He's a very cool guy. He's young. He's like 45.
Oh.
He came up to the cockpit for like 2 hours one
I
day.
need to chat with him
and
about these
talk
car
to me.
washes.
So he said that they have a deal with Soapy Joe's.
Yep.
He's
Down
not
in
Soapy
San
Joe's.
Diego.
So he said we have a deal with them that we don't build our car washes within like a 5 or 10 mile radius of theirs, and they don't build with near ours.
Oh.
And I said that's a pretty.
So
cool.
I heard of a story with Quick Trip. I don't know if you know Quick Trip out on the East Coast.
I don't know if I
QT
know.
we call
Okay.
them. So they did the same thing. They had a story that with another large conglomerate in the gas station world that they'll stay in Georgia. They won't go to the Carolinas. And that company won't go to Georgia. Well, someone decided to bend the rules, and that company went too far into Georgia, and QT said, okay, we told you not to. And in a blink of an eye, within a year, you felt like there was every block had a QT on it.
Wow.
Literally. You go to Charlotte, you will not, I promise you, driving just from the airport down to the city, you'll see 5 QTs.
Wow.
Every single block has a QT on it now. And they just stormed the
went
Carolinas.
aggressive. Yeah.
Yeah. They probably said, I don't care. We're just going to go ahead and take your market.
Wow.
But that's great. And I've heard of San Diego. I've heard a couple of our investors who live in San Diego are actually members of those car washes.
Okay.
They produce phenomenal car washes. And I love that they have that there.
Yeah. I mean, I love talking business with people, even guys like you, and you're so far ahead of the time for your age too.
Thank you.
But I think it just comes from like you played college sports.
Yeah.
So you're going to have a hard time going to work for somebody for 30 years and sit at a desk.
I can't even imagine that.
Yeah. And I'm the same way. So it's really cool to sit with billionaires. Some are more talkative than others. But all of them have the same thing. It's who they hire.
Yeah.
They can't go make the billions by themselves. No. You have to have a team.
It's a team. I mean, just like a football team, just like a Formula One. I'm big into Formula One. Any sport has a team. Look at the Olympics. Yes, you're running individual meets, but you are training as a team to compete as an individual, and then you're winning as the United States. If you look at the overall Olympic gold medals, it doesn't say Curt on there. It says the United States.
Yeah.
It's a team effort still, and I think people need to understand that no matter what you do in life, you're stronger as a team. You and I are stronger as a partnership. If I'm going into the industrial space, I'm calling Curt up saying, hey, I want to break in the industrial market in Charlotte. What's your thoughts? Would you want to do this together? Yeah, that right there makes us stronger than if I said, hey, I'm just going to do it on my own.
Yeah, and I think it's people having an open mind. I think when I was younger, I didn't know what being open-minded was or growth.
Yeah.
And I started reading books on growth. And I hang out with people like you now, right? I want to hang out with business people that are family. They care about health, making money, and just being an honest person.
Most definitely.
That's the biggest thing for me.
And people don't realize how big this world is. People don't realize how much opportunity that there is for you and I, to win together instead of individually. There's so much opportunity out there. We just have to take action. We have to do it as a team, in my opinion.
Yep. No. And, I think, longevity and being in the market for a while.
100%.
And how you stay in the market and stay in business is being a good person.
Yes.
And communicating well. And it sounds like you're doing that with your investor reports,
Most definitely.
I love that.
Most definitely. Curt, I really enjoyed you coming and meeting us at the podcast here in South California. I love it down here. I'll definitely have to make my way down to San Diego too.
Yeah.
On our next trip. If you come out to Charlotte, get the kids out, bring the kids out, give you some good Southern hospitality. We have some good barbecue out there.
Yeah, you know it. All right.
Thanks so much for joining me. Yeah.
Thank you for tuning in to the Chris Salerno Show. We hope you enjoyed today's episode and gained valuable insight to help you along your journey. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. If you have any questions or topics that you would like to cover, feel free to reach out directly to me. Shoot me a message on Instagram at Chris_Salerno_. Until next time, keep pushing forward and stay inspired.